let's talk about Loki. In short summary, Loki is the trickster god of Norse mythology that fits the liminal trickster character archetype. Why is he important amongst the Aesir? Well, he's not technically one of them, but an outsider, yet still a god. Since most of Norse mythology that we have to study is left behind from post-Christian Germanic culture of Scandinavia, there's quite a lot of details left out in areas of interest. Loki didn't make an appearance in the scriptures until Snorri's Prose Edda, leaving a few hundred years of Norse mythology without this trickster. This could be a factor of syncretism, combining pre-Christian Germanic religions alongside with that of Norse mythology, or he was an addition by Snorri to tie together certain parts of the ancient myths. Either way, Loki asks as sort of a wild card in the myths that he resides in. His antics often would get the Aesir into unfavorable situations, but then would be resolved by using his wits to fix the situation. For instance, when a stranger approached the gods in Asgard offering to build an impenetrable wall and only asking for Freya's hand in marriage, along with the sun and moon in return, the gods declined this offer, but Loki had a different idea. Although this has been contested in a few different stories. Some say that the gods forced Loki to do it, some say that it was Loki's idea to begin with, but either way, he proposed to accept the offer from the stranger and give the stranger an unachievable timeline to complete the wall. Everybody agreed in pure greediness, and the stranger went along to build the wall with all the restrictions of it, that it had to be complete within one winter and no help from any other people. As it would turn out, the stranger had a stallion that was able to pull mountains and leave ravines in its wake, making the building of this wall an easy task. As winter was ending and the wall was nearly complete, the gods began to worry that they would lose their fertility goddess and plunge the world into eternal darkness by losing this wager. And Loki was at fault. So, in a trickster fashion, Loki turned himself into a desirable mare and distracted the stranger's magical steed, and the two of them ran off into the forest, not to be seen for several months. The stranger would turn out to be a giant in disguise and ultimately meet an end by Thor's hammer, and the wall would come to be complete. Loki would return a while later with a small eight-legged horse that would become Odin's mount that could outrun the wind. Where this horse came from is an entirely different topic. This story is just one example of the importance of a trickster god in mythology. Being able to live outside of society and bend the rules as they see fit creates great opportunity that would be uncharacteristic of other gods and heroes. Loki continuously finds himself in problematic situations that he needs to use his wits to get out of, and usually when he succeeds, there's profit in it for all. In the story of the origin of Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, Loki makes a wager that pit two dwarven craftsmen against each other in a competition of who would create the best gift for the gods. It all started when Loki had cut the hair off of Thor's wife, Sif, and needed to mend his actions or face the wrath of Thor. One of the gifts that Loki asks to be made is new hair for Sif. But in this competition, Loki also must wager his head to one of the dwarven smiths. The dwarves all make wonderful gifts for the god, including Thor's hammer, but Loki ends up losing this wager to the dwarves that won his head, and, again, in a trickster fashion, explains that they have right to take his head, but not his neck. With no way to remove his head without touching his neck, he gets out of the situation. Everybody has new gifts, Sif's hair is back better than before, and nobody died, and we have the legendary hammer. These stories give us some great psychological insights into Norse society. Although strength is highly revered, wits and knavery are also cherished traits. Loki is a testament to that by never really using weapons or any other items that would be a Jungian tie to the self, but only using his brain to outsmart and overcome the challenges that he faces, albeit challenges that he usually creates for himself. Loki would ultimately reproduce with his mistress,
Angerboda,
a Jotun, possibly a troll, who gave birth to 3 children that all fill their own etiological insights into Nordic ways of thinking. Hel, who ruled the underworld, called Hel,
Jormungandr,
the sea serpent of Midgard and arch nemesis of Thor,
Fenrir,
the massive wolf fated to slay Odin during Ragnarok. Loki's final major story is his role in the destruction myth Ragnarok. Prior to the end of the world, Loki got himself into some trouble with Odin for his part in killing his son.
Baldur,
Baldur was made to be basically invincible when everything in existence pledged to his mother
Frigg,
that they would not harm him, all except for mistletoe for some reason. This made Loki upset, so he set out a plan to make a spear out of mistletoe and have Baldur's brother
Hoder,
throw it at him without knowing it would kill him. Now, Baldur would die, but he would be one of the few coming back from Hell after Ragnarok. As punishment for this, Halfdir was killed for his act, and Loki was sentenced to a fate of eternal suffering. He would be bound to a rock by the entrails of his son Nari, with the venomous snake slowly dripping poison onto his eyes and body, causing excruciating pain. When Loki would writhe in pain from this venom, his movements would cause the foundations of the earth to shake. This shows us some cosmological insights into the North causation for earthquakes. So, after being in this living hell for what must have felt like an eternity, Loki escapes his binds and meets up with the Yontar to assist them in their fight with the gods. Loki would bring his kids that I mentioned earlier along with him. Jormungandr, the world's serpent, that would ultimately fall to Thor while killing him in the process, and Fenrir, the giant wolf, and Hel, who would bring the army of the dead up with her as well to assist Loki in this battle. Loki, along with almost all of the other gods, end up dying in this section of the story, which sets up the world for the rebirth. So, we can think of Loki as a necessary, although flawed, character throughout the myths. He acts as a scapegoat on multiple occasions for the gods. He solves lots of problems that nobody else was able to solve, and he portrays the gods as a fallen angel character type. But this all ends up destroying the old, flawed world and making way for the new one. So I don't really like to think of him as both good and evil, but as a necessary duality that ultimately creates divergency and change. And perhaps that's why he's looked to and even worshipped as a god, because those things were favorable in history, as is now.
Loki, Loki, you should really get to